We did one of these last year for the Galaxy S3, and it seemed only natural to build a video around the 13-megapixel camera on its successor. So, I'm Michael Fisher, this is Pocket Now, and this is your guided tour of every photo feature on the Samsung Galaxy S4. So taking great pictures starts with learning the device's camera software. We touched on this a little bit in our full Galaxy S4 review, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. Also, follow us in all the usual social spots to catch all of our Galaxy S4 coverage. To start with, the software on the S4 gives you a few options to jump into the camera. The easiest way, of course, is just to tap on the camera icon on the home screen, but what if the phone is locked? In default configuration, there's no quick jump into the camera on the lock screen, but there is an easy fix. Hop into Settings, and under the My Device tab, tap Lock Screen. Here, you can set the option to either restore the quick launch shortcuts on the bottom, or you can use a dedicated lock screen widget to jump into the camera by swiping to the left. Of course, it's not quite so simple if you use a secure lock screen. The camera interface itself is clean and fairly straightforward on the Galaxy S4. Starting on the upper left, we've got the toggle to switch from the primary camera to the 2-megapixel forward-facing shooter on the front. Next to that is the on-off control for Samsung's new dual-shot feature, as well as the settings cog, both of which we'll get to in a second. On the right, in a cue taken from HTC, the record button for the camcorder function is always displayed. There's no need to switch modes, you just need to tap it to start recording, and tap it again to stop. Below that is the shutter release for still photos, again, always displayed, and below that is the mode selector, which we'll come back to. In the bottom center is the pull tab for the live filters Samsung provides, and on the lower left is the quick jump into the gallery so you can review, edit, and share photos you've taken. Finally, not displayed but important is the focus area. Like many smartphones, the Galaxy S4 lets you tap to focus on a given subject, and it displays a box around what you've tapped on. This can be handy for long shots or trying to force perspective in a close-up photo. The box flashes green if the phone can get focus, and red if you're too close or if there's not enough light for a clean shot. So, just getting the filters out of the way, these are overlays, like cartoon and rugged and oil painting, that you can use to quickly add some personality to a photo. Yeah, you can do this after the fact in a great number of apps, but the advantage here is you can see what the shot looks like before you take it. One thing you might notice about the Galaxy S4 camera is that it has a narrower field of view than some other smartphones on the market, meaning you'll need to step a bit further back from your subject to capture as much surrounding area. That's just something to keep in mind for shooting in tight spaces. Now, the camera feature you're probably going to be using most often is the mode selector, which Samsung has brought over from its Galaxy camera, which we covered on Pocket Now a few months ago. The device offers specialized shooting modes for all kinds of situations, but they're laid out in a nice, friendly series of cards you can scroll through with one thumb. Auto is what you'll probably use most often, and it does a good job of optimizing photos across most normal situations. Beauty Face says it enhances facial features automatically, but its results sometimes look more like someone smeared pancake makeup all over your subject's face. Your mileage will vary on this one. Best Photo and Best Face we've seen before on the Galaxy S3 and the Galaxy Note 2. They're effectively burst shot modes with stitching features, so you can pick and choose the best faces in a group or protect against your subject blinking. Sound and Shot is a feature Samsung seems to have added just because it can. It lets you record and append an audio file to a still photo. The results are weird. You're left wondering why you didn't just shoot a video, but it's cute. We showed you Drama Shot in our full review, which is awesome. It overlays multiple exposures for a neat effect. It's a little finicky, but it works, and the results are very trippy. Animated Photo replicates the cinemagram or cinemagraph functionality of apps on other devices that let you create an animated GIF, selecting specific areas to animate or deanimate. This is a lot of fun at parties. We've talked a lot before about rich tone or HDR, and it's one of our favorite shooting modes. This is ideal for a situation where maybe your subject is slightly backlit, or there's a mixture of very bright and very dark areas in the frame. HDR, which stands for High Dynamic Range, takes photos from the same angle at multiple exposures and stitches them together to create a single photo. You don't want to use this mode all the time, though, and you don't want to use it on moving images. Eraser is a mode that also draws from Samsung's innovation in the multiple consecutive photos arena. It snaps 5 shots in a row of your subject and eliminates objects like people or vehicles that might pass between you and it. It's perfect for areas packed with oblivious tourists who would otherwise blow your shot, and it works very well. Panorama is something of a standard feature these days, allowing you to stitch multiple photos together into one ultra-wide shot. It works okay on the Galaxy S4, but it really demands a steady hand, and even then the stitching lines between photos are often very evident, especially if the exposure value changes as you pan across a scene. Samsung has added the ability to take panoramas in portrait mode with the Galaxy S4, which is cool, as well as 360-degree panoramas. But unless you're only photographing distant landscapes, you really need a lot of skill and patience to execute one properly. The last two modes, Sports and Night, are self-explanatory. The Sports option helps you capture fast movement, and the Night mode allows more light into the sensor. Just be sure to keep a steady hand when shooting. Modes can only take you so far. Sometimes you need to access the more granular aspects of the camera, and that's what the settings cog is for in the upper left. Tapping it expands some quick and helpful options. There's the flash toggle, which lets you choose between flash on, off, and automatic. Next to that is automatic night detection, which will let the camera put itself into night mode if it detects a low-light situation. Next up is the voice command toggle, which either enables or disables the function that lets you take pictures by telling the camera things like smile, cheese, capture, or shoot. Some of those trigger words work better than others, by the way.
Cheese, you...
Second to last is the recording mode toggle for the video camera, which lets you either limit video size for media messaging or change the frame rate to shoot slow and fast motion video. These are really cool options, but we're not focusing on the camcorder for this tour, so we'll stick with normal. Finally, there's the Samsung-specific sharing options, such as Share Shot, which uses Wi-Fi Direct to share photos to other connected devices, Samsung's old Buddy Photo Share feature, Chat On, if you use Chat On, and probably the coolest feature in this menu, Remote Viewfinder. This allows you to use another Galaxy S4 connected via Wi-Fi Direct as your viewfinder in situations that call for stealth or self-portraits or just some fun silliness. When the toggle bar is extended in the upper left, tapping the cog again, that's the tricky part, is what gets you access to the very granular settings. The window is separated into 3 tabs: Still, Video, and Other. Under the Still heading is the Photo Size selector, which is probably the only setting we semi-regularly play with on this device. That's what allows you to set the resolution of your photos, which out of the box is 9.6 megapixels instead of the maximum rated 13. That's to preserve the 16:9 aspect ratio. Fortunately, the aspect ratio is included in all the resolution settings, so you don't forget what shape you're shooting in. Other settings like burst shot and face detection are pretty self-explanatory. Burst shot lets you keep your thumb down on the shutter release to take up to 20 photos in the space of a couple seconds. And face detection does what it says, optimizing focus for human faces that the camera can see. Metering is more complex. It refers to the way the camera determines exposure and allows you to select between center-weighted, which concentrates sensitivity toward the middle of the frame, spot metering, which takes its exposure information from a very small area, and matrix mode, which averages several different points of analysis. These modes can be handy for very tricky scenes, like crazy backlighting, but HDR mode should suffice for all but the toughest conditions. ISO refers to the sensitivity of the image sensor. The lower the number, the less sensitive the sensor, and the finer the grain. You can force the ISO manually higher to capture more light in darker situations, but the picture will be much noisier. Again, the night shooting mode will take care of most folks in low-light situations, so you shouldn't have to touch this very often if you're just a casual user. Anti-shake refers to the camera's artificial software stability enhancer for bumpy shots, but it's not as good as hardware stabilization, and its default setting is off. Auto night detection is a duplicate, we saw that before. Switching over to the Video tab makes us wonder why it's even here. There are only 2 options in camcorder mode, one for controlling resolution, and the other for anti-shake in recording, again, defaulting to off mode. It's the Other tab, under the cog, that contains the rest of the camera's advanced features. Once again, we have a mix of complex and simple here, and we wish Samsung had organized this a little better. In the more complex department, white balance allows you to compensate for various atmospheric lighting conditions, both indoor and outdoor. In short, it helps you keep white objects looking white, which of course makes your color reproduction overall better. Exposure value allows you to compensate for a camera's incorrect assumptions about the lighting of a scene. It's most useful in very dark or very bright situations where the auto setting sometimes gets things wrong. For very bright settings, the positive numbers should be used. For darker environments, go negative. These settings will be most effective in the hands of a more experienced photographer, but it can't hurt to try them if you're in a tricky spot. At the very least, it's helpful to know they're there. Finally, the camera's other settings are pretty self-explanatory. GPS tagging lets the camera know where each photo was taken, useful information for the gallery and other apps. Review displays the just taken photo immediately after capture. The device volume buttons can be used to simulate a shutter release, or zoom, or the camcorder record button. And the timer is handy if you can find a rock to prop the phone up against for a self-portrait. Guidelines can help with the composition of your photo. Contextual file name governs how your photos are named in the phone's file system. And finally, reset will, you guessed it, reset the camera's settings back to default. If it all seems a little overwhelming, well, it is. But that's just a combination of all the utility Samsung has built into this camera software, along with the fact that really no one should sit down and try to absorb all this information at once. And we've really only scratched the surface of describing it all. Hopefully, though, we've provided a useful, high-level overview of the Galaxy S4 camera settings and features that you can refer back to the next time you're wondering what that button in the viewfinder does. Until then, happy photo taking, and good luck. Folks, as you know, if you've been watching long enough, we have much more coverage on the Galaxy S4 at PocketNow.com and here on YouTube. So drop us a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to us on YouTube and at our various social feeds if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below if we forgot something or if you have some other feedback. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.